Rare and Donkey Kong. Two names intertwined in the wondrous void of video game history. Where one existed, so did the other, and their titanic rise together helped to define the Super Nintendo as one of the greatest consoles of all time. After 3 superb titles in the Donkey Kong Country series, Rare returned 3 years later with the next iteration for their powerful primate, and a switch to 3D no less. DK64. Now this is a game I still look back on fondly. New 3D graphics, new Kongs to play as, new worlds to explore. This was the next big thing, and many people, myself included, couldn't wait to get our hands on that wonderful yellow cartridge. DK64 appeared on the scene with huge expectations to match up to. Not only was it a new Donkey Kong title, but it was also following in the footsteps of the already beloved Banjo-Kazooie. Not only that, but DK64 changed our own perceptions by throwing up a slew of new changes and additions while still keeping the overall style of the game intact. Bonus barrels, collecting bananas, stomping baddies, platforming. It's all there. Only now, DK64 has you recovering the golden bananas one at a time, like Jiggies. And instead of saving your furry family members at the end, you unlocked them as their own playable characters, adding an array of abilities to an already expanded, colorful cast. With that in mind, the premise is as simple as get your bananas back in a throwback to the first country game. Well, that's probably all the background you need to hear on this ape-tastic adventure. Let's get into it, see if it managed to climb to the canopies of Nintendo greatness, or if it slipped on a few bananas. No, that was bad. Now, people don't like hearing their favorite games criticized. And I don't know, that's honestly not that weird. But as much as I still adore DK64, after revisiting the game, I can say it has some problems that bring it down a bit. It pains me to do this, Rare, but I gotta set aside some of my beloved nostalgia for a few minutes. Prepare yourselves because amidst all the praise, I've gotta throw out some criticism. Turns out DK64 slipped on a few banana peels, one of which is the game's somewhat poor camera. Now, a fair few games on the Nintendo 64 inevitably suffered from some camera troubles. That's not meant to be an excuse, it's just that the days of the N64 were the dark ages for 3D video games. It's not to say the camera isn't something that should be criticized. If it's crap at times, it's crap. No two ways about it. However, I think arguments of the camera implementation being horrible are slightly exaggerated. Most of the time, the game is designed in a way that gives you a large field of view of wherever you happen to be in the level. And at times where you need to be precise in your movement and not have a shitty camera angle, you can center the camera behind you with a press of the R button. It's almost like pressing Z in the N64 Zelda games to do the exact same thing. Maybe calling it the Dark Ages was a misnomer. Dimly lit ages. That's not to say there still aren't times where the camera is awful, because there are. Quite a few of them. This is such a shame because the bulk of the gameplay is quite fun. The Kongs all control well between their various jumps, attacks, and other power-ups, and platforming is largely quite easy because of the preciseness of the game's core mechanics. Hell, even swimming in DK64 is completely improved upon over its predecessor. Yet it's hard to appreciate the advances that were made when there are moments of complete frustration involving the camera. I mean, look at this shit! This top-down perspective gives me absolutely no depth perception whatsoever. Where the fuck am I? Not to mention I gotta deal with this annoying starfish hitting me in the face, only adding to the stressful nature of swimming in such cramped corridors. I understand Rare more than likely purposefully made this particular section annoying as there's a golden banana up for grabs, but I don't like it. It's a lazy way of tripping up the player. When an entire world is primarily comprised of water, you're not gonna enjoy yourself all that much when they pull shit like that, even if the gameplay itself is quite nice overall. And that's all despite the fact that the world itself is a gloomy assortment of flotsam, jetsam, lighthouses, and sea lions, which makes for an amazing atmosphere. That's why I said gloomy. The level in question is literally named Gloomy Galleon. I'm not creative, guys. Unfortunately, this isn't the only aspect of the game that was lazily implemented by Rare. Let's check out the minigames. DK64 makes use of several mini-games that test your ability to react on the fly within a specific time frame. Each minigame shows up in the form of a floating barrel that you discover through some sort of challenge, and in general they become increasingly difficult to get to as you progress from world to world. Now in theory, I don't mind having minigames periodically as a way to test the player's right to another coveted golden banana. You gotta earn every single one. You can't just whip out a couple of coupons and get the challenge reduced to half price. However, there's a significant lack of variety with the minigames the adventure throws at you, and that's a huge problem. I don't want to play the same minigames where I swat flies and go to the casino. I'd rather just go to New Vegas. But the worst offender out of all the minigames you see time and again, and a very glaring example of Rare's laziness, is Beaver Bother. Can I just rant about this for a second? Good, because I'm gonna rant about it. It's happening whether you want it to or not. This minigame is potentially the worst fucking thing in the game. You thought some stuff was broken before? Nah. This shit is so unfair, it makes the most difficult segments in your favorite platformer look like a walk in the park. The objective of the game is to herd the required amount of naughties into the central hole. Problem is, half the time they do whatever they feel like. Get them to the edge? Nope, I'm just gonna precariously walk backwards right along it without ever falling in. When you have just 60 seconds to herd 15 of them in, which by the way is about 1 every 4 seconds on average, and the gameplay of the minigame is totally screwed up, it basically becomes a, well, I hope I get lucky enough this time around. 40 minutes later, when you finally get it, you sit there wondering why the hell you bothered in the first place. And then they throw the same challenge at you. Again. In the same world. Why? That's why I'm so frustrated revisiting DK64. It annoys the crap out of me that they couldn't have done more of this. It's so lazy. I mean, we like these minigames. They're interesting, so why not do more with them? In fact, I enjoy the challenge they provide and initially look forward to them. Even the build-up to finding the bonus barrels is typically interesting and fun. The fact that the minigames are continually reused only with a slight alteration in difficulty is another aspect that comes across as somewhat lazy and ultimately a little disappointing. Either provide us with a greater amount of minigames to tackle, or make more challenges that are directly incorporated into the worlds you visit. I know it sounds like I've dumped DK64 on the side of the house and let it rot in some trash or something, but I've still got one more gripe I want to talk about. Let's talk about this game's frame rate issues. Now, I'd say this is the biggest killer in the entire game. It's fine if you don't like collectathons. I can understand why one might not enjoy collecting all manner of objects from bananas to coins to ammunition. Even as someone that loves the genre, it can certainly get tedious, especially in some cases with DK64. But even if you do love these types of games, it can become extremely difficult to enjoy the game when it runs so fucking slowly. Seriously, I shit you not, look at this. I haven't slowed the game down. This is supposed to be a countdown before I race this annoying bug thing. I don't know what the game's running at, but sure as shit isn't 30 frames per second. Even the actual movement remains slow at the start, and then that happens? Might as well restart because that turtle whatever is now 3 corners ahead and pulling away. You know, yeah, that's totally fair. I didn't realize I had to race Sebastian fucking Vettel. You might think on the back of that there's nothing good to mention about the game. I mean, tediousness, repetitiveness, laziness, these are some shitty things, but there are still some really awesome things about it that might just outweigh those annoying bits. Let's inject some positivity into this video, eh? For me, the biggest pluses to DK64 are its environments, characters, cutscenes, and music. And how about those environments? Woo! The worlds in DK64 are amazing. They give the game a lot of vibrancy and character that help it to stand out from many other titles at the time. Each area feels alive, with an awesome variety of landmarks that really help to differentiate each section. With every new area, there are so many interesting places to go that I just genuinely wanted to visit everything rather than feeling like I simply had to go everywhere for completion's sake. Not only are the locations memorable, but the worlds are large in their scope, which adds to some of the mystique they have. And despite the world's scale, the inclusion of the warp pads makes it easy to move between each prominent location, thus making players more inclined to explore when they can move about uninhibited by unnecessary running through connecting tunnels and hallways. Likewise, characters have a lot of personality, both good and bad guys, with cutscenes and general interactions that are goofy and lighthearted. Many small interactions with the characters you meet have the same quirky dialogue you'd expect from a Rare title, and there are frequent bits of humor thrown in that add just a little bit of depth to the overall story. Each Kong is unique in their own way, with different abilities and character traits that are endearing, if not slightly predictable. Even K. Rool has his moments, with his comical struggles to get his subordinates working in any coherent fashion a highlight of several of the game's few cutscenes. His Doomsday weapon continually has mechanical troubles, and as the Kongs edge ever closer to whooping his ass, his increasing frustration only gets funnier. So what about the music then? Well, I know it's kind of a, I guess, reviewer trope to talk about Grant Kirkhope, but his music is fantastic, and DK64 is no exception. The soundtrack is so vibrant, filled with a plethora of memorable hooks, jingles, and atmospheric changes that give the game even more character. There's the theme for Angry Aztec, with its tribal, mystical tones that perfectly complement the surrounding sand and structures. Then there's the equally wondrous yet contrasting themes in Fungi Forest. From the active, bright, cheerful tune of the day to the cold, foreboding twilight of the night, they envelop you into the world and help to set the mood. Musical themes in each world also carry through all the different locations that belong to it, from running in the central open areas to platforming inside a nearby building to swimming underwater. They all change as you move from place to place while still maintaining the same overarching theme. In short, these themes fit perfectly into each subsequent area and don't feel like an afterthought. They've been lovingly crafted to enhance the experience. Even now, years after I first played the game, I still go back and listen to the music. But you know what hasn't had any going back to? This type of game. I should probably be more specific. Basically what I'm saying is we never saw a sequel that could have expanded on what was already there. That's probably down to the problems DK64 had, but I feel like they're all issues that could have been fixed in a sequel. We've seen DK go back to his roots since then with DKC Returns and Tropical Freeze, and those games are hella rad. But there's still that little part of me that would have loved to have seen DK 128, just to see how they could have expanded on what we had already had. One can dream. DK64 hasn't aged well in some categories, clearly. But I still absolutely adore this game. Years later, I still enjoy its environments, characters, and story, and it's still just a blast to play despite some of the tediousness. And I think it's still worth your time to go back and visit. And with that said, I'm Wally the Legend. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.